Something, it's surprising that we discount the fact that those fiscal policies that Bawumia is saying when he comes into government he's going to remove. It's a basis of an approval that is being operated today. So your tax envelope that Parliament has approved, the revenue sources that Parliament has approved, which is running your budget for 2024, includes all those revenue measures. So if Bawumia is in a position, or if the Akufo-Addo government is in a position to do something about it now, what it means is that you have to look for alternative revenue sources to plug that hole. Okay. But see, Mr. Mahama in government in 2016, he had a manifesto for 2017-2020. Did the question ever arise why he did not implement all the things that he was dreaming of doing between 2017 in the event that Ghanaians had given the mandate?
He certainly did. And if it's coming up in a pronounced form, there's a basis that the electorate wants. I don't
have a difficulty. You and I know what the provision Article 74 says, okay, where the executive presidency and executive authority in Ghana is vested in one individual. Okay.
58.
Yeah, whatever.
58 one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. 58. Thanks for the correction. Invested in one individual. Of course, the vice president assists the president in, and of course, cabinet. And my good friend here has been in government before. He knows how cabinet operates. When people debate, articulate their views, a decision ultimately is taken. And whether you like it or not, that's the position of government. We're in this country when...
You're not telling me...
I'm coming.
You're not telling me we are running an autocracy.
That's not
where the president at cabinet
I said a decision,
commands everything else.
I said when a decision is taken. I didn't say the president decides.
Okay.
So when a decision is taken. We lived here in this country when the finance minister under the Akufo-Addo administration, first time, openly expressed a view that was contrary to what government position was on the implementation of the free SHS. So how is it the case that when the vice president indicates that when given the opportunity, he is not going to implement or continue a certain tax handle that is being implemented today, we have issues?
The party is endorsing, the difference is here. The party is endorsing this.
No problem.
The president sitting is also endorsing this.
Of course, I'm saying
and telling the voters that this are superior views to
my
what Mahama is promising and any other candidate.
Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is formulating his fiscal and economic policy. He will factor in the discontinuation of the E-Levy and look for alternative sources that then enables him to roll out his programs without the benefit of the E-Levy. So really, I fail to see how this even becomes something that we spend time discussing. The point is this. Dr. Bawumia has outlined...
Are you suggesting this is an illogic, that the people who are asking these questions are not thinking?
I haven't said so. But my view is that to the extent that Article 58, is clear, any executive president has a vision that he is articulating. Dr. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo articulated his vision.
The executive president is sponsored by a party.
I don't have a...
The executive president hardly does things that are not supported by the party.
These are notorious facts that I don't think we have to...
Okay, please go on. Yes, go on.
I'm saying that regardless of the party sponsoring, it's still an individual whose name and face we vote for. He is vested with authority by our constitution. And he takes the decision. The buck stops with him.
Let me put you on the spot.
Yes, sure.
What 1, 2, 3 things can you tell me the party wanted to be done that Akufo-Addo, vetoed, or things that the Akufo-Addo wanted to be done that the party has been against?
I don't think that is material. I'm saying that everything that the MPP government is doing today, I support 100%.
Okay.
And of course, there were bases why government rolled out the policies that it rolled out, including the E-Levy. What was the basis? We had just come out of a pandemic. Government finances were challenged. Government said, look, I don't want to go back to IMF. I want to implement policies internally to raise revenue, cut expenditure. Outlined expenditure cutting measures in the budget and new revenue measures that he intended to roll out. Obviously, because going to the IMF was going to prescribe those same solutions or prescriptions that we all knew: cut expenditure, raise revenue. Then we go to Parliament. Okay, then Parliament approves the budget, which is the revenue and the expenditure component, proceeds to approve the appropriations, and says, I'm not going to allow you to roll out the revenue measures that I have approved already in the budget. Obviously, the consequences were there for all of us to see. Between January and March of 2023, we saw how the city took a hit. Okay, our general economic environment suffered. And so, until the E-Levy was rolled out in, I believe, end of March and subsequently implemented in May, a lot of harm had already been done. But I'm saying that those were measures that Akufo-Addo government rolled out to deal with a particular situation. Thankfully, our economy is rebounding. Dr. Bawumia says that when I get the opportunity to govern, these tax measures, I will not factor them in my revenue stream going forward. I'm going to implement a comprehensive tax policy, make a certain tax regime which is flat across, make it more realistic and practical for people to comply, cut certain component of our what you call it, infrastructure, and let the private sector handle it, create space within our fiscal regime to ensure that we are able to provide the services that are critical for the good people of this country.
Okay, so that question
and so that realignment.
Can you look at other issues as your colleagues on the platform have raised concerns about, and what you want to project?
I listed quite a number.
Okay.
My senior colleague, I realized you went to Addis Ababa reading your profile sitting here.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a Santa too.
Nice.
And it's important that we temper the language, okay, that we use in. You may disagree with a certain policy proposition, but it doesn't, under any circumstances, make it useless. Okay, we can agree to disagree, and in all honesty, I don't think that you've taken time to read the NPP manifesto, because if you did, you wouldn't be making.
I have.
Yeah, but of course, you say that there was no mention of agric. Meanwhile, in chapter 10, agric and the policies on crops, poultry, agro-processing is all outlined there. You say he never mentioned the debt. Meanwhile, on page 6 of the manifesto, the vice president mentions the debt profile and all of that. You say he never mentions value addition. On page 181, he talks of value addition. They are all clear in black and white in the manifesto. You say the jobs that he mentioned are Zoom Lion jobs, as if to say those are not jobs. Yeah, they may not be the kind of jobs that we all will wish our children to have. And so the government is rolling out policy that ensures that people are able to go to school and all that. But I have the job numbers here. The 2.3 million jobs that you discredit, it's here. Okay, Ministry of Interior, Ghana Police Service, Prison Service, Fire Service, Immigration Service. 2017, 3,500. 2018, 3,500. 2019, 0. 2020, 3,549. 2021, 2,057. 2022, 3,200. Totaling 15,814. You go to Ministry of Works and Housing, regional integration.
How does the
10,000?
Keep your question.
And 31. Forestry Commission 102,000. Regional reorganization 1,728. Ghana Airport Company GCAA 1,356. Regional Maritime Organization under Ministry of Transport. So these are broken down into sectors, okay, and private sector, okay.
So if you take the first segment of the sectors that are government, immigration, police, almost every year they are recruiting.
Yes.
So what jobs have you created?
But they are jobs because remember,
you don't take credit
hold on. Between 2012 and 2016, there was a freeze under the Mr. Mahama administration.
It was not going to be a perpetual freeze.
But there was. Was there
because of a program? So
because of a program, of course, you can argue that way. But the truth of the matter is that these jobs have actually been created over the period.
No.
Plus,
the jobs were existing. You just filled them. You didn't create them.
you're filling vacancies.
You're filling vacancies.
or adding because there were
no vacancies
No,
in
you didn't
2012.
create them.
There were no vacancies.
Them.
There were no vacancies in 2012,
You didn't create them.
2013, 14, and 15 and 16. There were no vacancies.
And Samson, the bigger point is
see,
you are feeding off a liability. You're not bringing in new income into the system.
So hold it. Yes, please go on. You are going actually to private sector.
I wanted to hear that one.
It's 975,164. And if you look at the data in 2017, it was 171,079 new jobs.
Right. Now help your viewers to understand something.
188, yeah.
Help your viewers to understand something. I'm asking so that you will help because of the first question I asked about which they have just tried to categorize as just filling vacancies. What's government's role in the employment in the private sector?
Excellent.
Of course, it's the environment that you create, okay? And so the policy that you rolled out in one district, one factory will create jobs.
Correct.
The policy that you create in the vehicle assembly space will create jobs, okay? And all the other things that government does that stimulates employment in the entrepreneurial skills training and the incentives that you provide, they are all things that create jobs.
That's right.
But there's a clear admission on the part of Dr. Bawumia that these notwithstanding, there's still a huge gap.
He said, but this is not enough.
Absolutely. It's not enough.
We must do more.
Precisely. And he outlines his vision of the things that he intends to do to create more jobs. We can critique it. I don't have a problem. Okay? But you cannot wipe it off with a stroke of a hand as if to say, no thinking has gone into the document. Okay? I'm saying that if you look at the manifesto that was launched last week, it addresses issues all the way from cradle to grave. Okay? From child mortality issues, from, the opportunities that the government is creating in education to ensure that we build some human capacity that will deal with our 21st century issues, all the way through to employment creation, care for the aged, if you permit me, how we're going to sustain and expand our economy, which is rebounding. Samson, there's no denying that we have had a very challenging economic situation in the period between 2020 and 2024. These are matters of fact, okay? What accounted for it, government has outlined them. Of course, people disagree, which is okay, because like my good friend in Nusa said, in a democracy, people will disagree with you.
In fact, the manner he went about part of his critique, I felt that was problematic because if they launch their manifesto this afternoon and we have to use the same argument on their manifesto, he will not be happy about it. That these are things that you've just written, their words.
And he makes the point that they are empty rhetoric. But you see, thankfully, we have an institution in this country that takes the pain of assessing manifestos. Imani. They call it a manifesto.
That's right.
And you can look at the track record of both parties. Truth. No government has been able to achieve all the commitments that they made at every election cycle. Because several factors will come into determining whether you are able to deliver on all your commitments or not. So, for example, when Akufo-Addo came into government in 2016, we knew there was a challenge in the banking sector. But did we know the extent? Because there's been an attempt to resolve it through the liquidity support that Mr. Mahama had provided through the Bank of Ghana to banks. It turned out that what they did to those resources, we all subsequently saw in the Boulders report. We knew there was energy sector issues, but did we know the extent? Did we know the extent of excess capacity contracts that have been contracted? And so government had to deal with them.
But we knew. Your ministry knew. When you went there, you knew.
I said
That's why we suggested that, the World Bank suggested that some contracts ought to be cancelled and others rescheduled. You knew.
I'm saying that it was when we got in that.
No. It was there before you got there. Mind you, I was working at the ministry before you went there. It was there. It was there before you went there. Mercer. No, I said, no. It was there. It was there before you went there.
Okay, please allow him to finish.
Not a problem. But we all got to know that 35% or so of all the invoices that are generated by the IPPs were actually excess capacity payments. You needed to pay. Government contracted debt to pay them down. Not all of it. Then you began the process, of course, working with the IMF at the time when we came 18 months after implementation, most of the targets had not been met. So there was a negotiation to extend it by another year or so to make sure that we ran the cycle to exit, having achieved all the targets. We did that. The economy was growing. In 2020, we were hit by a pandemic that affected every single country in the world. People argue that the impact on Ghana is different from other countries. And why not? Because Ivory Coast, for example, they don't have energy sector and banking sector crisis that I had to deal with. So I would say that we had underlying conditions. So the impact of COVID on our country will be different from what it would be on Togo, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso. Fast forward, you try to then roll out a program to deal with those problems that had arisen. Then we have the challenge that we had with the E-Levy in Parliament. Immediately thereafter, you have a war. That disrupts global supply chain and increases freight cost, average, from 2,500 to 18,000. Why? It will impact cost of living. Because imports, and I agree with you when you say that it is not right for Ghana at this level of our development to import guinea fowl from Denmark or tomatoes and onion from Burkina Faso. But government policy, planting for food and jobs, requires private sector to take advantage of those policies to roll out, okay? And so if we are not responding sufficiently enough, it will create issues. In an attempt to even deal with that problem, Samson, you recall the LI that Katie Amon sought to introduce in Parliament to try and place a cap.
Price control.
No, not the price control, not the cement one.
Okay.
The one that related
things,
to the importation
the
of rice.
and all those things.
What happened? Because you ought to start from somewhere.
Okay.
Look, you lived in America.
I lived in Ghana.
You lived in America. I've checked your profile. I didn't know you before we came here. I've read. You lived in America. I'm not so sure whether 60 years after America's independence, all their problems had been solved. We are a developing country, for crying out loud.
That's such a weak argument.
It can never be. It can never be. I'm saying that, yes, there are some things that obviously we all ought to work to accelerate. I don't have a difficulty with the view that we should not be importing tomatoes, but these are the policies that government with time.
All right.
Based on your revenue stream that you are able to, and of course, wastage and all that needs to be checked. I agree. Okay? But there's a lot that has been proposed in this document that if the good people of Ghana buy into it and give us the mandate, I'm sure that all things being equal, after 4 years when we come back to seek another mandate, Ghanaians can evaluate and determine that indeed these things have been done and that it is worthy of giving NPP another opportunity.